Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast that looks at projects throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And on today's episode, we are going to have a report from Lewis.
We are.
Which at this point I am blissfully unaware of the topic of, but you listeners will know from the title of the episodes.
Yep.
Assuming it's been titled correctly. We've done them all right so far. So. Well, due to scheduling conflicts, we are going to be diving straight into the report today. So do you want to take it from here, Lewis?
Yes, I've got a question for you. It's
Lovely.
multiple choice.
Okay,
so,
ready.
Hopefully you don't remember the topic list.
I haven't had a look for a little while.
Good.
Since a long time ago.
All right, I tried to pick that wasn't directly how it's worded. But anyway, what did the British government create that killed 35 people in a British village?
I've
got
you got multiple choices.
Multiple choice. A, rain-making planes.
Rain-making planes.
B,
okay.
Self-driving submarine. Or C, a high-altitude weather balloon.
Right. Okay. I'm. This is bringing back something to me. I feel like I may have glanced at this topic I would have glanced at it at some point. I mean, I really like the idea of the self-driving submarine, but I don't think it's that. Also, how that would kill people in a village or coming off, or accidentally launching some missiles or something.
Yeah.
And the first one was a rain-making plane.
Rain-making
plane.
plane.
Very like alliterative kind of rhyming. And then the last one was a weather balloon.
High-altitude weather balloon.
High-altitude weather balloon. I think I'm aware of what the topic is, but I don't know anything about it. So I think it's one of those two.
That's why I was kind of specifically vague.
Good. I'm going to say that it's the weather balloon.
You'd be wrong. It's the rain-making plane.
Rain-making plane. Lovely. Very
exciting. So to set the scene.
Yeah, please do.
It was the 15th of August, 1952.
Oh my gosh.
At 7 a.m. The sky was a mix of yellow, green and purple. And there was a smell of sulphur in the air.
Oh my gosh.
Before torrential rain came in.
Dramatic.
The rivers overflowed and the town of Lynmouth flooded. 35 people died.
Oh my gosh.
Local man Jack Clapp claims to know what caused the unexpected rainfall.
What was he called?
Jack Clapp.
Jack Clapp.
Jack Clapp.
That's a great name.
He says it was the military planes that had been spraying the clouds the days before.
Wow. Incredibly dramatic start there. So we've got a town. When was it set?
1952.
1952.
It's a village in North Devon.
It's Devon, is it? Yeah, I think I remember that from the little brief that we'd written there. So there was a flood that suddenly happened overnight, did it?
Yeah.
Torrential rain and the riverbanks overflowed, all that sort of stuff. What was the colours of the sky? Because that was very dramatic.
Well, yellow, green and purple.
Yellow, green and purple.
Mix.
And I didn't think I mean, purple you can kind of get with the sunset. Yellow is quite normal. Green is very extraterrestrial almost in nature, isn't it?
And there's the strong smell of sulphur.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like something's going on there.
Well, Jack Clapp insists it was the planes.
Jack Clapp, it's a very good name.
Yeah, so the heavy part of my research for this was from a 2001 BBC Radio 4 documentary. Right. Where they had quite a few interviews with people from Lynmouth.
Okay.
So that's where kind of a lot of the research came from.
So although, how many people died?
35.
Do you know proportionally, was that, I mean, it's obviously a significant amount to die from an incident, but was it quite a lot of the town, do you think?
I couldn't find a specific number for the population of Lynmouth at the time.
But I mean, imagine there must be. It didn't wipe out the town completely. Or anything like that.
I'm trying to quickly look at how many people live in. It doesn't even say Wikipedia. It's a small town.
Well, imagine it's a significant portion, but not more than like half.
Yeah, maybe, looking at the pictures, the entire town got destroyed. Wow, okay.
The other thing I was going to say is Jack Clapp really sounds like either a private eye or like a press guy. The thing is, like his little thing in his hat, Jack Clapp.
A lot of these interviews are done in 2001, so 50 years later. So they're all really old men with really strong accents. So not quite that private eye Jack Clapp. So to go back a few years before the disaster, cloud seeding, as it's known, was developed by Dr. Vincent Schaefer in 1946.
Okay.
The idea was that if you spray dry ice into a cloud, the water vapor latches onto it and it increases the chance of rain.
Yes, I've heard about this. They do it in countries now to try and get.
Yeah,
they shoot up kind of fireworks.
It's
almost,
never been like fully proven either way. I'll kind of talk about it a bit more later.
Yeah, but it's something I'm vaguely aware of.
Yeah, Dr. Schaefer would soon move from dry ice to silver iodide.
Right, okay.
Which
doesn't sound particularly
like a chemical compound. But I think it's just better for getting like the water vapor to latch onto each other.
Right, okay, yeah.
Because the idea is to get it all compact so that the rain starts falling.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I can see the science.
The UK government soon began to conduct their own investigation into cloud seeding in 1949 with Project Cumulus. Which is going to be the title of the episode.
Lovely. Okay, Project Cumulus.
Spelled Cumculus.
Which is a type of cloud?
Yeah, so a cumulus cloud is like the flat base, like fluffy ones.
Right, yes.
The ones that people often think that like, oh, I can see a hippo or a man.
Quite like a Pixar kind of cloud.
Yeah.
Toy Story and they were quite good at doing
quite nice looking, which they rarely rain. Basically, they generally have to develop into another type of cloud.
Because a rain cloud is normally more of a big covering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas these are kind of nice little fluffy.
And obviously like darker. These are the nice fluffy that you see on a nice summer's day.
So is it kind of like the idea is to turn the cumulus into rain clouds?
Yeah.
Is that why it's...
Pretty much, because otherwise they just go on and then fade off. But they're like, if we can condense these, then we can cause rain.
Okay.
A Project Cumulus was conducted by the Department of Meteorology at Imperial College in London.
Okay, yeah.
Led by meteorologists Richard S. Scorer, Frank Ludlam, and Alan Yates.
Okay, some quite good names there.
Yeah, it's really hard to find any info on them. Alan Yates comes back up later.
Yeah, they've got good like scientists.
Yeah,
British scientists, 1940s. Is that late 40s?
Yeah, this is 49. The project starts.
They sound very much of their time. You can kind of imagine them in like a TV drama, maybe.
Yeah,
not that I know anything about it yet, but people with those character names.
Yeah, they're very kind of typical. So the project began in August 1949.
Okay.
With the RAF attempting to seed clouds in northeast England and the North Sea.
Mm-hmm.
The early reports suggest there was limited success, but they did see potential in the program.
Okay.
So they weren't causing rain, but they could see that actually there's a chance here.
Right. And the reason why they're kind of investing in this in the first place, is it for the science of it really, or is it because it'd be useful for things like agriculture and stuff, do you think?
It's a lot of it is military stuff. So the military specifically said 3 of the main reasons they wanted to do this is it could be good for bogging down enemy movement in war, incrementing the water flows in rivers to hinder enemy crossings, and clearing fog from airfields.
Okay, right.
So they're mostly looking at it from a military point of view.
Yeah, okay. So not like I was thinking maybe agriculture.
I mean, I think a lot of people did want to use it for that, but obviously once the military...
if there's somewhere, a hot part of the world or somewhere that's got droughts or something, obviously that would be a nice thing to do for them.
Yeah, exactly. The military also suggested that they could use cloud seeding to set off an atomic bomb.
Right, okay.
In some way.
So
I'm not sure exactly how it would work.
I guess if they knew there was a bomb somewhere already and they could flood it and
I think it was also the idea of like having like nuclear clouds and then seeding them so that they rain and it would have a much like wider impact.
Oh, well, so that's almost the bomb itself is the cloud.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
kind
pretty,
of like acid rain sort of.
I guess with... you hear that with like nuclear fallout and stuff, don't you? It kind of blows around.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's the idea. I think that could get into rain clouds as well. So I guess
and this stuff was like all like in official minutes of like the RAF like higher up.
That's
so, like,
pretty intense, isn't it?
Yeah, that's 1953. That's
this is
atomic bomb
this is
stuff.
early for. Well, I mean, it's after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Obviously, it's quite.
But it's when they're like, oh shit, what can we do with these? Especially
weapons? For British forces, I imagine. It's like if they could crack this, it could be their thing. whereas the Americans have already got the bomb sorted.
So in these early years, like there wasn't much success, but they were still just kind of testing stuff. There isn't much details on it. It was quite a low budget kind of experiment. They were just kind of testing the waters to see what would happen.
Almost literally there.
Yeah, excuse the pun. Just trying to see what happened. But then we get to the morning of the Lynmouth flood.
Right.
So the rain began on the 15th of August 1952 and continued into the morning of the 16th. So almost 24 hours of rain.
Right.
90 million tons of water swept down from a nearby valley into Lynmouth.
Oh my gosh.
Causing the East Lynn River to rise and burst its banks, pouring into the village. You can find like British Pathé. You can see
I can
clips
imagine
and stuff of it, and it literally just looks like full blown rivers running through.
Yeah,
but you realise it's the high street.
Yeah, because we've seen stuff like that on a smaller scale recently. Do you remember there was some flooding that happened in London and places like that?
Yeah, and there was Germany as well.
Yeah, Germany as well. There's places around here with floodplains where we get small scale flood. Well, I say small scale. It's not as dramatic as this, but it's
but I mean,
build new developments on flat floodplains and stuff. And
the stuff that happened in Germany recently is probably quite comparable to this.
Yeah,
it just doesn't have a conspiracy theory behind it.
Well, not yet anyway. But
no, they're saying quite a big issue as well is that they would kind of take a load of boulders and mud through the flooding as well. Take it
across.
They kind of uprooted trees, and a bit of problems. The trees would then get stuck against bridges and build dams. So then the water would just get higher and higher,
and then that just rushes over the other side.
Yeah,
so almost mini tsunamis going on and on.
One woman said that she saw water pouring into her neighbour's bathroom window, but her bathroom window's on the second floor, the first floor for us, second floor for Americans. But water goes, so it's literally that high, 10 meters in the air.
That's insane, especially for a tiny little village as well. Yeah. It's you don't almost expect things like that to.
Yeah, so this Radio 4 documentary interviewed Denise Singleton, who lost 6 members of her family in this flood.
Right. So I was saying about the proportional for the town, but obviously for some families. Oh wow.
Yeah, she was the one who saw her neighbour's window being flooded.
So then I guess her lower floor might have had.
Yeah, well, her house was completely destroyed.
Yeah.
All that remained after the water drained was her garden, which has now been made into a memorial garden. But literally, all bricks and everything was swept away.
That's awful. Wow.
And looking at the pictures of it, it looks it reminds me of the Blitz, where you see London buildings getting destroyed.
So rubble and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of them is half the buildings come off. You can just see into the houses. Wow. I think a lot of it as well would have been they would have taken away the foundations.
Yeah, because it almost pulls it
underneath
out.
And the house.
If some big bit of debris swung past, like you said, it could just demolish stuff through, I imagine.
Yeah. Denise Singleton said that the body of her grandmother was only identified because she had a recognisable wart on her back.
Oh wow.
Her arms and legs were missing.
Oh my gosh.
She met loads of this 35 people. A lot of them were never found.
Yeah.
Because fast Ruffin River obviously whack against stuff. They just got disintegrated.
Gosh. I saw it reminds me of the tsunami. Was it 2004?
Yeah, in Indonesia.
Indonesia. I saw there's that film with I think Ewan McGregor in it.
Right.
Called The Impossible or something. There was a clip I saw where it's about a British family that were on holiday at that point.
Right.
And it's the bit where the wave hits and it's it's so scary. Yeah. And you see it get pulled back and they're in a pool. And Tom Holland's in it actually. It was his first film. But it's so and then it blacks out and it's all the whooshing. And then I think it's Naomi Watts or something. She's just clinging to a tree.
Yeah.
And then it just zooms out and it's just this horrible muddy water rushing past.
Obviously the videos of this
intense thing.
You only kind of see the after where the water's flowing through.
I mean even
at the height of it.
Yeah.
Like it would have been
that kind of thing.
But just like kind of like a small like country village as well. It's probably never had anything.
So like, what time was it? Do you know that it all kind of kicked off? Was it?
It's like in the early hours of the 16th.
So everyone would have been.
A lot of people would have been. Yeah, people might have started to be getting up
for work and stuff, or like if it was farming, was depending on what was going on in the area. Yeah.
But yeah, like the Wikipedia page for Lynmouth Village, like half of it is this. flood.
Understandably.
It's
Yeah,
like
we might not even have the Wikipedia page if it weren't for that.
It's like the only notable thing that's ever happened to it. Wow. Apparently, North Devon in total experienced 250 times the normal amount of August rainfall in 1952.
Wow. So
compared to their normal amount of rain.
Large amount. Yeah. Wow. And the thing is with that, I mean, if that had happened now, which we can probably get onto later, but you could probably blame it on
like climate
change or something like that. But obviously, in this case, it's before that was a thing. Yeah, we'll get. I'm sure we've got some.
And like flooding was possible with particularly heavy rain, but like that number is ridiculous. Which
so
is
how much was it? 150
250
times
the normal amount, which like is ridiculous.
That
really,
is crazy. Yeah.
And like
and the size of Devon, it's like it's not that big.
Yeah,
like if you on a global scale, it's like it's a very small part of our country.
Yeah, exactly.
And our country is a pretty small country.
Yeah. And what was I going to say?
Which is quite localised then, isn't it? Effectively?
Middle of August as well. It's not like it's in the summer.
About 4 months before, maybe you'd expect a bit of rain, but
maybe in like 4 months' time.
Yeah, 4 months either way.
But August,
it's probably normally the driest part, one of the drier parts of the year, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to have that much rain localized in such a small area, pretty intense. Yeah.
So do you reckon this could be at fault of Project Cumulus?
It's hard to tell because, I mean, so the person Jack Splat?
Clap.
I was thinking of Jack Sprat from the rhyme about bacon.
Oh yeah. I know that name from somewhere.
Jack Sprat, good eat though. Why was it particularly that he thought it was? Because you said that he noticed the cloud seeding.
Yeah.
So were they aware of kind of experiments going on in the area?
So
and that smell of sulfur, was that part of the kind
I think because it's such a unique smell, he was like, this must be something to do with those military planes that have been trying to make it rain.
So when it goes past, is it a bit like you know when they put out fires and they drop the water out the back?
Yeah,
a little bit like that.
There's two different forms of cloud seeding.
Right.
It's either you have something on the ground that shoots up into the cloud.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. More like a firework. Or
a firework that then opens up in the cloud.
Yeah.
The more common one, which they use, is you fly up onto the top of the cloud and go just inside the top fluffy bit. And then when you're inside, you open up and let out all this like dry ice or silver iodide into like the really center of it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then after X amount of time, it's meant to then
have some effect.
Cause it to
so
rain.
what is it? Clings to it, and then it causes it to be more heavy.
Yeah, it causes the water vapor to get close together to make cloud heavier and cause the rain.
Are there any concerns, about like if that rain is bad for things and plants and animals and people?
They didn't really specifically say anything because and there's still no proof
that it can
definitively
even do it really at all. Yeah. No, I was just wondering. So there's the what was he called again?
Jack Clapp.
I keep thinking Jack Sprat. So Jack Clapp. So he obviously thought that. Do you know if he was an anomaly in that situation? Did a lot of people start believing that?
A lot of people in the town had no idea. They just thought it was a freak anomaly.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think because he knew about the Project Cumulus, he put two and two together and was like, it must be that.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see why, and it does seem like a crazy, anomalous amount of rain.
Yeah,
but I mean, there are things.
Rain does happen.
Could have caused that, and it's for it to be such a specific area. I mean, without knowing, I suppose it'd probably be hard to find maybe the rain in the neighbouring counties and stuff.
Yeah,
because if they were also higher, but just not as high. That kind of defeats it a little bit, but I mean I can see the link. And that's the thing,
and
I'm partially on board. I think I'd have to probably have a little bit more evidence to win me over. Do you know what I mean?
A lot of people have gone looking for this extra evidence. The government specifically said that the flood was not a result of Project Cumulus.
Of course. I mean, they're not going to take...
and they kind of continue to experiment under a different name, and more secretive, until 1955.
Okay, and this is 51 or
52. Project Cumulus ended in 52 after this flood. Right. And they kind of rebranded and carried on for another few years and then gave up.
Was it in the public knowledge?
Kind of, but not.
When it was the discussion about whether it had caused it, was that immediately after then?
Yeah, so some people were already discussing, well, is it to do with this?
So it makes sense that they rebranded then anyway.
Yeah, and then after 55, they kind of officially cancelled any cloud seeding programs.
Like some of the stuff we talked about before, obviously could go either way there, could still be going. But you'd imagine that it would be a known thing by now. Especially, it's not so fringe science. Do you know what I mean? That
if it was successful, we'd already know about it.
People would be using it, and that's what.
So Tony Speller was MP for North Devon in the 80s.
Right. Okay.
And took particular interest in the Lynmouth flood.
Okay.
He was always adamant that the government would never admit to it because they'd have to pay like a shit ton of compensation.
Yeah, understand.
It's like if you've destroyed a town, all these people have died. The government are responsible.
Yeah,
and that's why they'll never admit it.
Yeah.
And he said that when he researched it, he looked at the RAF documents and the Agriculture and Meteorological Department's documents around Project Cumulus and all their later cloud seeding experiments, and said that there was a significant amount of papers missing in summer 1952.
Right.
Like there's extensive papers from like 49 to 55 and like the middle of 1952 there's loads of missing documents.
Right. Okay.
And everything else is like they're accounted for.
Okay.
And it's not even like they just weren't doing anything. It's kind of like weekly meetings sort of stuff that just suddenly stopped.
So there's a like regular inputs of data and experiments and meetings throughout the whole of the lifetime of the project.
Kind of 6 years.
Yeah, but for the around the time before and after, it's very
secret. Like these, they've gone missing. Like there's no way of
incredibly
dodgy, right?
Incriminating there. Yeah.
10 years ago when I was looking into it, I found somebody.
You were looking into it 10 years ago.
Somebody,
it's been a long one coming, guys.
Yeah, I've been planning this. Somebody was also recent, just like a member of the public, and they wrote a letter to the Ministry of Defence asking to release any documents they'd had on it, because it had been
it's like
60 years
whatever
now.
the word is for a time has passed and you can release certain things.
And I read the letter that, because they then published it, I read the letter that the MOD sent to them and they're like, thank you for your inquiry. And it specifically says the MOD has not and does not conduct any cloud seeding experiments. And it's like, but we know they have.
We know.
Like there's freely available files to show that they have experimented in it.
So they're just straight up
like
lying.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, but like,
you feel like somebody was probably like tasked with writing that letter, and they were like, write something like, we don't do that, we never did, and they're like, we did not do and never, rather than saying, following the story that the files were missing, like you said before, they're just gone, no, we didn't.
Yeah.
Like, but you did.
So like, it's a bit weird, right?
That's very strange. And that's
that with the missing documents, it's like somebody seems to be covering something up here.
Yeah, and you just have to think that once it gets to the point where maybe people have not necessarily in power or have passed away or something, maybe it's something that may come out later on.
Some people reckon
been
that
long enough almost,
these files were destroyed.
I mean, that sounds
which means we'll never be able to
unless
know
somebody
definitively.
Word of mouth, But even that, it's
yeah.
And also, it's been a massive amount of time, like 60 years now.
Yeah. On the other side, the BBC approached weather expert Philip Eden.
Okay, cool.
Who described the conspiracy as preposterous.
Right. Okay.
He said cloud seeding experiments were usually individual clouds not on a big enough scale for the flood.
So a small cumulus cloud to see if they that sort of thing, see if they could get it.
And he said like all of the southwest was particularly wet that summer.
That is, when you said about the whole of Devon having more rainfall.
Yeah, so he said like Cornwall and kind of South Wales was also raining quite a bit.
Because even if it was the whole of Devon, that would be a massive cloud seeding operation, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Unless they started some sort of chain reaction that kept things going. Or,
that could also be it. But he kind of thinks like, no, it was just a freak year.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, it's these missing documents. So
or maybe the government or the people working the project were concerned that they might have had some involvement without meaning to, like maybe the chain reaction
just cover themselves up,
and they got rid of stuff just in case. But maybe now with our knowledge, further meteorological knowledge, we might think, well, we never could have done that, but maybe at the time, maybe they panicked about it.
So which way are you leaning at the moment?
I mean, I think the destroying of the document, well, the coincidental losing of the document, the misplacing of the hard evidence is very suspicious and makes me lean towards the fact that there was some involvement in some way, even if it was accidental, like I say. But then, I mean, also a weather expert, like not to be like that conspiracy person, but like it's that one guy might have like some agenda. You never know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just verging on like anti-vax, like not believing science thing.
No,
but you know what
to just kind of say, I don't know, it rained a lot that year.
Yeah, I don't know what the broad scientific opinion of it is. I imagine that other meteorologists would probably agree with this person, but maybe they wouldn't.
Like, I feel like it's more than just it rained a bit heavy that year. It was 250 times the amount of rain.
Yeah, I think that's an extreme, and it'd be interesting to see it on a graph even since then, because it may be a climate change thing, global warming. It may be that since then there's been years where it's been that high again, and maybe post-war, maybe there was more emissions or something, you know. That's the rational kind of explanation, but it would be not great, obviously. Lots of people died and it was a horrible tragedy, but it would be interesting if it had been some sort of devious experiment gone wrong.
So kind of the Radio 4 documentary I listened to was kind of sitting in the same way we are kind of at the moment, that like it's kind of suspicious, but we don't really know anything definitive.
Yeah.
So they went and started interviewing people that were involved.
Okay.
And found RAF pilot Len Otley.
Oh, okay.
Who remembers being part of cloud seeding experiments and flying over Devon around that time.
Wow. Okay.
So it suggests like it was a thing.
So they were doing stuff in the area.
Yeah.
So Jack Splat's
Clapp.
Oh, no. Jack Clapp's idea, it does have some legs there.
He wasn't just
do you reckon he might have, because there must have been an RAF base nearby or something
well
like that.
It doesn't even like I think
because it might be
it doesn't even need to be nearby.
No,
some of it says it can cause a heavy downpour 50 miles away, some of their experiments.
Okay, because also wind blows stuff around.
Yes, they don't even need to be in Devon at the time. He might have just heard about it and been like,
I just thought maybe he might have known somebody who was involved or something. You know, people. Yeah, I don't know.
Len Otley, also the pilot, also says that everyone working on it, apart from like the people who run the experiments, all the pilots and stuff, knew Project Cumulus as Operation Witch Doctor. Right, so they were like, it's clearly bullshit, and like only witch doctors can make it rain. So it's like colloquially known just as Operation Witch Doctor.
That's quite funny,
So like he didn't believe it. But then he recommends talking to Flight Commander John Hart, because he'd have log notes.
Right, somebody who's a bit more senior on the operation.
Yeah, he was just like, I just flew the planes. He seemed like a really nice guy, but he was just like, I don't know anything, I'm sorry.
Because that's the thing, because with things like that, if there's science, if it's a science-based operation, project, whatever, and they're getting military personnel to do the groundwork for it, they're not going to, the military people aren't going to know necessarily anything about it. So they are kind of the wrong people.
So almost, John Hart, who's kind of in charge of keeping track of when the experiments will happen, said, fortunately, he still had his logbook for like 50 years later.
Well, that's very, Convenient.
Yeah. And he notes that they dropped dry ice into a cumulus cloud on the 3rd of August.
Okay.
And it rained 30 minutes later.
Right. Okay.
So he was like, they will celebrate like mad because they're like, oh my God, clearly it works.
Right. Okay. So a couple of weeks, almost 2 weeks before this.
There was 8 further flights made from the 4th of August to the 14th of August, the day before the flood.
Okay.
So they did it once. And they were like,
it's worked. Whether that was a coincidence or not, I suppose.
And then did 8 further flights. He hasn't said the results of those.
Yeah.
Which also may be a case of it worked the first time and then it didn't work. Let's try
kept trying.
Let's try and up it, put more in.
Could be, yeah.
Which then could have built up to this ridiculous
maybe the
amount.
Conditions for that first one were perfect and they didn't know what those perfect conditions are. Yeah, and then maybe they stumbled across like a 250 times amount almost. So
let's put loads more in over another 8 flights.
Yeah. Or maybe they all built up. Is that
Yeah. But the fact that they then did a load more flights.
Okay.
When I first read that, I was like, oh, it's like 2 weeks before and it rained immediately.
Yeah.
And then when they did a load more flights, it's like clearly they were doing stuff.
Yeah, it's
at the time.
It's very coincidental for such a freak, event and accident to happen around all these experiments.
Yeah.
I think even just without being like conspiratorial about it, it's like you'd have to look at some connection, wouldn't you? Just scientifically, you just have to be like, there's got to be, there might be some connection. There's not got to be. There might be some connection. It's worth exploring. So to completely say no, I think is a bit
and Alan Yates, really. One of the key people I mentioned at the beginning. He said that first one of the rain was where it was 50 miles away. So like, it could be sort of thing you do it here and it could rain anywhere.
So it moves somewhere else. Yeah.
And he said him and his team, when they heard it was raining loads in North Devon, all started celebrating because they were like, "Oh my god. like what? This is great! Like we've done it."
And then not realizing
and then they saw it on the news and were like devastated.
Oh shit. So
Alan Yates seems to think that his experiments were.
So maybe do you think that's partly why some of those documents might have gone missing? If some of the scientists at the top
if he's written down that like we did this, then it rained in Lynmouth, I think it's the cause.
Either them or somebody else might have gone, better get rid of this kind of thing.
Yeah. And actually, the BBC visited Alan Yates just before the Lynmouth flood because they were going to make a show about how we now know how to make it rain.
Oh my god!
They had this whole a documentary about like, oh, we now know how to make it rain. We've been working with Alan Yates, and the Lynmouth flood happened, and they just like quietly abandoned the show and destroyed all copies of it.
Oh my god! So they'd already started.
So the BBC were convinced that we had discovered how to make it rain.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then so it's like
okay,
but still, there's no definitive proof. Like
that is
the fingers are all pointing, but you can't ever.
I mean, it also it feels very much like something was covered up there, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it also seems like a mad conspiracy theory.
It's both.
But the more I read, the kind of more I was like, if people like Alan Yates are convinced that what they did was to blame, then like I kind of like, I know that Philip Eden was a meteorologist and obviously his opinion is valuable.
Yes.
But I kind of thought Alan Yates is more valuable because he was directly involved with it.
That's the thing. I think something could sound really crazy on the surface, but if somebody who is involved in it believes in it and feels guilty about having potentially caused a horrific accident, maybe that's something worth checking out.
In the 90s, the British Geological Survey went to Lynmouth because they said, if we found silver iodide in the ground, it would prove it definitively. Right. They found some silver, they found some iodide, but never together. So they've gone back a few times since, and I still haven't found them in the same place. But they've also said that like we're not giving up yet. We're still going to keep looking.
Right. Okay. So they are. So it's something that's being like actively.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Released periodically, like
what. I mean, I don't know how recent they've been doing this, but
it's
up until in the last 20 years, they've been looking for silver iodide in Lynmouth.
So it's possible, I suppose. I haven't actively studied chemistry for a long time, but it's possible they could have kind of become separated, unbonded, or
the fact that like they were like, oh, we haven't found them in the same place. It's like, well, I don't think they may not have had a full understanding of how it works. They may have just broke in the rain, for example. Once it started raining, the silver and iodide split. I don't know as you said, I don't know the chemistry well enough, but
the fact that there are geologists that are really not necessarily convinced, but somewhat enthusiastic about finding out the
these are kind of experts.
Wow.
So that's kind of the main bit, but cloud seeding is a thing.
This is what I was confused about, because you said about it not being so much.
It's not like been definitively proven still.
I feel like I've seen it on the news and stuff about cloud seeding in countries.
So 2 towns in America in the 50s and 60s sued the government because they blamed the government for causing floods in their towns unsuccessfully. The Americans used cloud seeding in the Vietnam War, called Project Popeye, another project between 67 and 72, to try and kind of flush out the Viet Cong.
Like you were saying about the army ideas.
In 1978, following that, the UN adopted the Convention on the Prohibition of Military or Hostile Use of Environmental Modification, which said cloud seeding's illegal.
So a bit like a Geneva Convention kind of thing, but for weather.
So it's got to a point where the UN have banned it from being used in combat situations.
So it is a thing.
Right?
but there must be some
there's
people
still
that
some debate over whether it works or not.
Because I suppose at the end it's not like a bomb where the bomb wouldn't go off unless it was right. It's rain happens anyway.
Rain happens, it might just rain.
Okay. Is it classified as like it's not a particularly fringe or pseudoscience, is it? No. It's based on real things.
It's not like insane. And people are still experimenting on it for environmental purposes.
Yeah.
So obviously it could help droughts and stuff.
Very helpful.
I did read, I think there was a drought, I haven't got it written down, there was a drought somewhere that they blamed on cloud seeding because they'd basically used up all their potential rainfall. Right. So then after that, there was a big drought.
Because obviously that's a big issue as well, because it doesn't solve getting water up into the clouds. It's just the other way down, isn't it?
At the time of this Radio 4 documentary, they were saying the Ministry of Defence was still spending £1 million a year on cloud seeding experiments.
Right, okay.
So the Ministry of Defence are just like bullshitters.
What? When that was it in the last 10 or so years?
That was the documentary was 2001, so it was 20 years ago.
But still, I mean, it's then
10 years after, they were like, no, we've never done that. It's
that's so ridiculous. It just makes you think with all these things, it's so easy for the governments
to just be like,
of the world just to lie to their people.
Yeah, the World Meteorological Association estimates that 56 countries in 2016 were doing cloud seeding operations.
So is it kind of that nobody, do you think anyway, that almost nobody's perfected it, so everyone's a bit hush hush about it? Do you think and because of the fact it can, cause damage to their own people, or their kind of agriculture and stuff.
Allegedly, the United Arab Emirates have used it to try and get extra rain into the United Arab Emirates because it's generally quite a deserty country.
A dry place,
China used it to use up all the rain so it wouldn't rain at the 2008 Olympics.
I think that might have been where I've heard of it before.
Yeah.
I think it was an Asian country. I think it was China.
So they didn't want it to rain during the Olympics.
Yeah.
So did a load of cloud seeding before so it'd kind of clear the skies.
It sounds so ridiculous.
It sounds ridiculous, but I'm kind of convinced. So obviously that's kind of all evidence of the fact that people do take it seriously and still doing it. Whether or not it was successful in 1952 with Lynmouth.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? How much time has passed between those two?
Yeah, so like, it's. I mean, because they're still doing it, like there must be some scientific basis in it.
Yeah, or
even if
like
there's no definitive proof.
Yeah.
So like, I guess it's kind of one of those ridiculous things like, oh, we can make it rain now, like
because it sounds like if you think about like a weather machine or anything, that's very like it's like comic booky, science fictiony, but obviously it's not like a ray that shoots up into the sky and makes it snow or makes it hot or whatever. It the way that you've described it does sound like something that makes sense. And
and it could be a thing that in like 100 years time they're just like, oh yeah, like it was raining because we made it rain.
Actually in I think in the film Geostorm
I knew you were going to mention Geostorm.
I watched it at some point and I don't remember a lot of it, but from what I do remember, there was something to do with, I think they talk about cloud seeding. I think there's pods that shoot out of a satellite that different chemicals do different. It's all that's very out there in pseudoscience and science fiction. But I think at some point they do talk about, one of the purposes is they can make it rain in certain places, things like that. But yeah,
so a bit of a short report because of time constraints, but
yeah, totally.
I would say to kind of end it. Do you think the government caused the Lynmouth flood?
I think it's putting me on the spot there.
Yeah,
I think
I've given you kind of the evidence that is used.
I think that they,
and obviously there's no right answer.
No. I think there is. We just don't know.
Yeah.
I think that it seems very likely that there was some connection with what they were doing. I don't think that. Well, I'm sure it wasn't on purpose. I don't think that's really a question there.
No,
but I think the fact that people on the project seem to feel some guilt towards it. I think if they believe it, obviously that's partly like a positive, whatever it's called, bias kind of thing. Like they will be doing the work, but. Whether it was a combination of what they did and other factors, I think that's probably more likely, because I think at that point it didn't. Yeah, but then there's the BBC thinking that they'd done it.
Yeah,
difficult.
There's a lot of like things suggesting.
Yeah, it seems like a lot leans towards it.
But it's also like nobody's going to go out there looking for evidence that that Project Cumulus had no. So there's going to be more arrows pointing that way because
and that's
nobody's looking for the other arrows.
Yeah, because people get. I don't know. I'd say I would lean towards it. Yeah, I mean, if I had to do yes or no, I'd say that something that they did combined probably with other
it was
perfect
one of those
storm factors.
Like I started doing my research and I was like, that's a bit silly. Like they made it rain and killed 35 people.
And then
but the more I read it, I was like, holy shit.
That's the thing with these projects, especially these like military, government projects. It's a combination of the fact that a lot of them they were carried on for a long time for a reason, and if there's any interesting conspiracies, people, like you say, do find the evidence that supports it.
It was quite hard to find kind of all the evidence on cloud seeding this because it is still quite secretive. Like
strange though,
on what they've done.
Which makes you think
it may be that it was just no success, so nobody's bothered reading up and releasing it.
It's interesting. So you'd imagine that.
Imagine if we did have the power to like make it rain.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just assumed that it was a thing that you could do, like vaguely without having thought. Because I remember, I remember that thing about the Olympics in China.
But you think about like the droughts they've had in California or the wildfires in Australia.
Well, that's it. Yeah, if we could,
that would be a time to make it rain, wouldn't it?
I think from what you've said, it sounds like I imagine that they could maybe control it to some degree, but things like they'd have to account for where the clouds were going to blow and things like that. Yeah. So maybe they can make it rain with some certainty, but where it's going to rain is the thing that's the issue. So maybe that's part of
maybe they did do cloud seeding with these California droughts and Australian wildfires, but they just They weren't successful or rained elsewhere, and they were like,
else. Yeah, it could well be. Yeah. What do you think then, based on what you?
I think I'm convinced. I think because they did say that they had some success.
Yeah.
Or they believe they had some success. It's those missing records as well.
I mean, that's very
dodgy,
very sus, isn't it? That is a big that plus the what was he called?
Alan Yates.
Yeah. Those two together are the things that kind of push it over the edge a little bit.
Yeah, I can't think of like the obviously the other side is basically it rained anyway.
Yeah, it's the volume though, isn't it? 250 times.
Yeah,
is such an extreme amount. 2.5 times
is a lot.
Is a lot. 250 times. 25 times is a lot.
Yeah.
250 times.
It's kind of ridiculous.
But then also, it could be an anomaly. These things do happen.
Yeah.
And global warming as well. Not something that was really considered at that time.
Yeah.
I know we've had a lot more emissions since then, but I
wonder if they would have, because they kind of stopped their project soon after, or publicly.
Yeah.
And maybe if this flood didn't happen, that BBC programme would have been made.
Well, that's it. And if the BBC
got more funding, gone more into it.
Well, that's the thing. If there was a programme that went out in 1952 on BBC, one of the only channels, I think
it was the only channel
that we had, then I'm sure it would be in the public consciousness for one thing, which means funding. It would have started. It could have started a whole revolution in that sense.
Yeah, it's kind of strange to think. You kind of see it in like various different sci-fi, from things like Jurassic Park to other things where they have this great idea, but it never takes off because disaster strikes early on.
Yeah.
It's kind of that sort of thing.
It could be, yeah.
And then they can never go back to it because they're like, oh, what if another Lynmouth happens?
You say that, but how many Jurassic Park films have there been now?
Yeah,
we can never
that's a whole other topic.
You know what? There might be something with Jurassic Park we could do at some point.
Probably like a comic or something. We'll have a look at it after we recorded.
No, nice. No, that was good. Very interesting. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I thought it was quite fun.
Did you kind of get sucked down into the rabbit hole?
Yeah, I would recommend to kind of figure out more. Like I said, most of the stuff I got was from the Radio 4 documentary, so credit to them.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube.
Right, okay.
It's like half an hour long or so.
So not too.
So if you want to hear kind of these interviews directly.
Yeah, it would be interesting. And some of the footage I'd like to see as well.
Yeah, that's just kind of those 2-minute clips on British Path. But yeah, go check it out because it is quite interesting.
Nice, yeah, we'll do. Yeah. So we don't need to do any kind of rating or review for that. I mean, obviously, no. I would give it 5 stars, 5 out of 5 there. I'm sure you'd give your report the same.
Yeah.
So if you want to reach us at all via email, you can email us at theprojectprojectpod@gmail.com. On Facebook and Instagram, we are the Project Pod. On Twitter, we are at That Project Pod, and on Reddit, we are the Project. So if you want to reach us with any similar reports that we could do, any events or anything like that.
If you've got any information about the Lynmouth floods,
that would be incredibly interesting. If anyone had a relative that lived nearby, was involved in any way, we'd love to hear your personal stories.
I've got any of the facts completely wrong.
Yeah, as with all of our episodes, if there are any grievous errors that we've made there, please do correct us.
Yeah, because then we get to learn too.
Yeah, because obviously, hopefully you've learned something from this. I know that I've learned quite a lot, so hopefully you guys have as well. And it would be great for Lewis to learn something.
Yeah.
Learn his lesson. And any comments or anything that you want to let us know. You want to start a chat on the Reddit, if you want to send us just a random tweet saying, why don't you do something more interesting? Why don't you shut up for once? Why don't you carry on with your lovely reports? Something like that. Any of those kind of things would be lovely. But thank you for listening. A bit of a shorter episode today, as we said, but we'll be back to our regularly scheduled episodes from next week.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.